What up, Drew?
Let me get you live. I can hear you. Just gotta turn up the speakers a little bit.
Okay.
Get in there. How you doing, man? How your day going?
Outstanding.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. How your day going, man? Look like you got a sunny. What you in 80-degree weather?
Man, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's probably like probably about a cool little 70,
All right. Give
70.
me a second. I'm just waiting for the speaker to come up a little bit. As soon as it comes up, I'll be able to chat and talk to you. All right. Testing 1 2 1 2. As soon as it gets plugged in, ready to roll. Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing. Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Send me the YouTube link so I can post it on my social media real quick, bro.
Okay. 2 3. Go ahead, say something. 1 2 1 2. Say something again.
Me?
All right. Testing 1 2. There we go. There we go. All right. I'm gonna send it to you. I'll have DMar send you to YouTube once we get started. Say something, Dwayne. You there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead, talk and say. Okay.
You can hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can I turn this up a little bit? Just a little bit because we'll get back to the Okay, 1 2 1 2. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. Once again, let me do the other introduction again. Once again, we're here at 90.7 WTCC, and we're live here on StreamYard, also on Facebook. We with my man right here, Dwayne Hendricks. I would give him an introduction. He doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm just going to tell you some of the stuff that he's done right now. He's the author of 4 books: Red Pill Alchemy. He got Supreme Science. He also the author of 2 children's books, Arilla's Crown and then Joe's Journey. So when I tell you about Supreme Science and Red Pill Alchemy, I'm telling you there's 2 books that are off the charts that you need to get. He's working on Red Pill Alchemy 2 right now. I can't wait to read that. Also podcast, ATL Kids Unleashed. Actually, tonight will be episode 36. I can't believe that we're at episode 36. I'm actually part of that broadcast. He also had the Hawk Talks. Um, he was on the Truth and Veil. He has the United Streets of America. He has the new Red Pill Room build, the Red Pill. Man, listen, how do you have all time for all that,
Plus, I'm a dad and a boxing coach. Don't forget that.
man? And he's a dad, and he just had a champion too, man. I know he don't really dive into the MMA, but he just had a little champ. Somebody just won the belt, man, too. So he's a
Yeah.
trainer, boxing coach, trainer.
Yeah.
Also a good friend, man. Actually met Dwayne. Is the reason why we here over. I seen a documentary that was put out in 2000. It's funny, it's put out in 2019. Now they're going back and saying it's put out in 2020. But it was a documentary, and it was called "The Lost Children of Atlanta" or "The Lost Children." And the documentary, there were some things that I really didn't set right with my soul when I was watching that documentary, and I ran across Dwayne's page, and he was telling about the untruth. So we actually connected and been connected ever since that's happening. So what we're gonna do today is usually we will introduce the guest. We're gonna talk about why we here. And so if you're not familiar with the Wayne Williams case, I'm gonna let him go into it for a couple of minutes, but we're gonna stop there because usually we'll have him in, we'll talk about the case, he'll talk about what happened, and then you usually don't touch the surface of why he's still in prison after doing 40 years. So what we're gonna do different is I'm gonna let Dwayne talk for a minute, introduce, talk about a little bit about Wayne Williams, why he's in prison, and then we're gonna jump in to we're gonna get into it to why he's still in prison and who's behind why he's still in prison. So we're gonna do something different. It's called the Expose Game, and it's called the Truth Behind Why He's Still in Prison. And I know it's gonna be different, but Dwayne has all the information and he can tell you from the get-go why he's still in prison. So what's good, Dwayne, and how you doing, bro?
First and foremost, please tell D-Moss I need the link because my 14-year-old is on spring break and she trying to watch it.
Okay, I'll get it. I'll definitely get it to him.
Okay.
As soon as he come back in, though. So.
Okay. So where you want me to start?
No, what I want you to do is, so for those who are not familiar with the Wayne Williams case, talk a little bit about the Wayne Williams case and how you got involved with it. And then we're going to stop there and go into it. He's sending it out. And then we're going to go into why he's still in prison. So talk a little bit about it. And I know since 2013, it's funny though, it seems like you've been along for a long ride, but you only been involved since like 2013, correct?
2012. I met in 2012. Right.
So talk a little bit about how you got involved, who Wayne Williams is, and why is he still in prison?
Okay. Well, Wayne Williams is the person who was wrongfully accused, convicted, and incarcerated for the murder of two adults in Atlanta, Georgia, named Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Ray Payne. They, however, attached these two adults to the epidemic in Atlanta that was eventually dubbed the Atlanta child murders, because during this time period that they say from 1979 to 1981, 29 murders occurred. And out of these murders, 23 of them were children. And it was a situation where Atlanta became known as pretty much the worst city in America. And you had situations where there were children being abducted and then eventually found murdered. Mm-hmm. And with these murders that was taking place, it's also very important that people realize that due to the racial climate, the quote unquote changing of the guard in the city of Atlanta at that time, in which you were going from a city that was known as a small city in the good old boy South, which was pretty much a Klan hotbed. Mm-hmm. The Klan was actually reestablished in Stone Mountain, which Stone Mountain is a suburb of Atlanta. With all of this taking place, where now in Atlanta, you had a black police chief, you had a black mayor, you had a black fire chief, and all the elected officials were becoming black, because now you have a city that's becoming a major metropolitan hub for the South. And this city is about 78% to 80% melanated people. Right. So there was a concerted effort to sabotage the city in that regard. So that's a part of the political landscape and people understanding what was going on. Also, equally as important to know is that with the Atlanta child murders, there was a list that was formed, And there were actually more children and more adults that were being murdered during this time, but these were the only children and adults that was placed on the list. These were the only people that were actually being talked about in the news media.
Yeah.
So there are many murders that are very similar to some of the ones that took place in Atlanta, whether it was children being the same age, whether it was people who were connected to human trafficking and sex trafficking, or whether there were people that were connected to the criminal element in the streets of the city of Atlanta at that time, which some of these murders were connected in those ways. So there were many different things that were polarizing about the case. And what ended up happening is Wayne Williams was a person that was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
He was pulled over. And basically they said that they heard a splash and that he allegedly threw a 5'11", 170 odd pound man over the side of a bridge while a car was moving. So he ends up being framed. A whole fake case about carpet fiber analysis and hair analysis is made up to be able to criminalize him and to make him the killer. And so he's been in prison now since 1981 for crimes that he didn't commit. He's been labeled a serial killer. He's been labeled the Atlanta child murderer, even though he's only been convicted for 2 adult crimes. Once he was convicted, they closed the rest of the cases. The big cover-up is probably the biggest cover-up in modern history, So that's kind of like the case in a nutshell. And then as far as my involvement, so in 2012, a real close friend of mine, he comes home from doing a 20-year bid in the state penitentiary, and he puts me on the phone with a guy who has also been my friend since the first grade. I get to talking to this guy, and I'm telling him that I went back to school, got my film degree, and I'm working on documentary films. And he tells me at that time that Wayne Williams is wanting to have his documentary done, and that what is that something I would be interested in. And basically that's how I got introduced to Wayne Williams, and that's how I ended up working on this case and eventually becoming the spokesperson for the Atlanta child murders and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. Now, since we ended with documentaries, let's talk about this real quick. So there's been documentaries and that I've actually seen and watched on there. There's been short stories. There's a story. It says 1979 to 2019. There was a special report going on by the news. All of this. You actually put me on Reclamation, which is some serious stuff. They said when they closed case, there was 36 other murders of children that went on after they incarcerated him. But I want to say this.
Right.
Let's focus on the documentary. There was when they pulled you together to do a documentary, which came out, the one I talked about, the lost children. Tell us a little bit about what happened, because you was actually supposed to be in that documentary or help produce. You were supposed to actually do this documentary. Tell the people what happened so they can get a clear sight. So nothing is unscathed with this.
Okay, so you talking about HBO documentary, correct?
That's correct. The HBO documentary. That's correct.
Okay.
Which just came out, which is recently one that just came out.
Right. So in 2015, I entered into a production agreement with a man named Matt Duff, who was a producer, and he had a company called Luau Productions. He was a known or accredited producer on multiple TV shows, and he was a part of the William Morris branding agency, and he wanted to do the story. So he and I, with of course the approval of Wayne Williams, entered into an agreement in which we would work on a documentary series called Systematic. He began to get meetings with everybody that you could think of: Netflix, HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, ABC, NBC. He was trying to get this in front of everybody. And what ended up happening was he went to all these places, and the people who were most interested was ABC. I'm sorry, HBO. So HBO basically told him, well, in order for us to want to do this, this is what you're going to need. So one of the things is they wanted a name director, somebody who was known for doing good work, as a director, right? So he went on a mission to try to find a director. Another thing that took place was another thing that they asked for is they said we needed a celebrity to help drive the narrative in public relations.
Right.
So with that, what ended up happening was we took a meeting, or he took a meeting with a man named Mike Jackson, who was, at the time, I don't know if he still is, but at the time he was supposed to have been another thing that they asked for, John Legend's business manager. So the whole deal was we were going to meet with Mike Jackson to try to get John Legend on board. So what ended up happening was a lady named Kelly Buchanan ends up telling Matt Duff that she wants to talk to me because Matt Duff is developing the television show, and he's doing so based on interviews and footage that I've been doing. So I end up being told that I'm going to do a 30-minute sit down or a 30-minute conference call with the lady Kelly Buchanan, who was at the time the developmental director for Get Lifted, which is John Legend's company.
Okay.
So we end up being on the phone for almost 2 hours. Her mind is blown after she talks to me. And then the next thing I'm told is that there's a meeting with John Legend. And the next thing after that is John Legend is involved, and he wants to be that celebrity spokesperson, so to speak, to help with the public relations on the case. So good to go. So while all this is transpiring, I'm living in Texas, and we get a renewed interest, and we go before HBO again. And now, from what I've been told, HBO is interested, and we finally are going to get the green light to do the show. Now, in all of this that I'm telling you, I'm actually paraphrasing, and I'm breaking down to you what was actually taking place from 2014 to about 2017.
Right.
So this was all taking place in a 3 to 4 year time period. So lo and behold, what ends up happening in 2018, we supposed to be doing the show. I moved back home from Texas to Georgia to be prepared to do this television show, in which I've been promised that I will be a consultant on the television show and a co-producer, right? So I moved back, put all my stuff in storage, and I'm ready to go. We're just waiting now on the official green light. We get ready to go to the table. The next thing we find out is that Jay-Z is now involved, and John Legend has crossed the street, and he's working with Jay-Z and now another person is involved as a consultant, as well as Wayne Williams's so-called attorney, Lynn Watley.
Right.
So Lynn Watley has allegedly made promises about Wayne Williams interviewing, but Wayne Williams is only going to interview if myself and Matt Duff are included in the production.
Yeah, since you the spokesman for him, it makes sense.
Right. So they voted to exclude myself and Matt Duff, which made Wayne Williams not want to cooperate. So what they end up doing is they purchased the licensing to be able to use that documentary Reclamation that you're talking about, and they use old footage of Wayne Williams. So many people saw this documentary and they're thinking that Wayne Williams actually was the person that or Wayne Williams actually interviewed and he didn't, you know. Right. So that's important for people to understand. And the other person that I'm talking about is an author named Maurice J. Hobson. He wrote a book called The Legend of Black Mecca, Politics and Class in the Making of Modern Atlanta. And this is how they spun it when they said that Jay-Z and John Legend were working together. They used this guy's narrative, and they were saying that the Atlanta child murders was only going to be a small part of the documentary series, and the bulk of the series was going to be about the fact that Atlanta became this black Mecca.
Wow.
Right.
So the intentions really had nothing to do with getting to the bottom of the story of freeing Wayne. It was more of a narrative to show that it was a black Mecca. Didn't you also interview with Will Packer? And was he involved in this project too? And tell him what happened with that, because there's a story behind that as well.
Okay. Well, what's important in a situation like this, though, is that we have to educate to a certain extent so people could understand, and they won't be like, oh, he just saying that because he lost out the deal to John Legend and he hating on John Legend and he hating on Jay-Z. But I want people to understand that in situations like this, from the outside looking in, nobody seems to realize how much of a money-making opportunity these crimes, tragedies that happen are to certain people who are good at manipulating situations, exploiting situations, and monopolizing off of situations. So this is a perfect example of what it is and what happened. And this is why they continually spin the same narratives and tell the same lies over and over again, because it's about making sure that nothing definitive ever comes, because if it does, it stops the money making.
Right.
So if they could do like right now, there's supposedly a play about the Atlanta child murders.
We heard about that.
For the life of me, I can't understand why somebody would want to do a stage play about the Atlanta child murders.
Correct.
You know,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's direct violation and disrespect to the families of those who lost a loved one.
Yeah.
You know, but I had to make sure I explain that, because people are just unaware of how diabolical and sinister some of the people that they look up to, admire, and listen to and watch really are.
Yeah.
So,
and they throw these, and they put these entertainers in here like they really care, and all it is really a distraction of really what's trying to be happening. Anyway. Correct. So let me drop some names on you real quick, and you tell me your thoughts and the truth about what they could have did different or the truth about it. Let's start off with Maynard Jackson.
Well, you didn't let me tell you about the Will Packer documentary. So
I know.
I got
Okay, my fault. My fault. Go ahead.
okay, so that's equally important. And then we also need to talk about the Atlanta Monster podcast, right? Because the documentary series that ended up coming out on Information Discovery Channel was produced by Will Packer. I never met Will Packer during the process, but what they ended up doing was they told me that they wanted me to interview. They wanted me to interview not so that they can put what it is I was going to say in the interview in the documentary series, although it seems as if a person is in prison and they're incarcerated, you should at least want the person who's speaking on their behalf, the spokesperson for their Freedom Project, to be able to be in the documentary as well, right? But I interviewed for almost 3 hours with them. They condensed my interview into a 30-minute segment that they used and called the 6 theories surrounding the Atlanta child murders. But what I want people to understand is that they never had intentions to use my interview to do anything but to figure out what exactly I knew about the Atlanta child murders, as if I would get on camera and tell them everything that I knew. So I, of course, protected myself in that regard and made sure that I didn't tell them half of what I know about the Atlanta child murders. But what ends up happening is Will Packer produces this piece and he puts a whole bunch of BS in this documentary, and they further get 2 people to come on camera and lie and say Wayne tried to abduct them, and one said that he saw Wayne in the area the day that this kid named Anthony Carter disappeared, who was later found murdered, which one of these people was actually a suspect in his own cousin's murder. A man, I choose not to say his name right now, but the kid, Anthony Carter, his older cousin, is a suspect and was supposed to take a lie detector test. And the day that he was going to take the lie detector test, he skipped town. The reason why they wanted to give him a lie detector is because they caught him in so many lies when they questioned him. And then another person that came out and lied is a person who actually, was, from what I understand, aspiring to be a rapper at some point in his life, always wanted to be famous. And he comes on camera and he makes up a lie about Wayne Williams trying to abduct him when he was a little kid. Although, this is never anything that came out in 1981 when Wayne Williams was a suspect and was shown on TV being handcuffed and walked all over the place. And this guy was on TV every night for about 2 or 3 years in your hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. And you never made mention of the fact that this man tried to abduct you, but now 40 years later, this is the story you come up with. So it's an educational process that needs to come into play when we talk about how the public perceives things and what happens when they're getting the finished product and they watch a documentary or they listen to a podcast and they don't understand that what you're viewing is you're viewing something or listening something that has been edited to provide a narrative to cater to an agenda of whoever's controlling the situation.
Yeah. Well, that's why that's why it's important to have you on, because a lot of people don't know that you only have a certain amount of time to get the story out anyway. But if you control the narrative of your own story, you have as long as long as you want to have.
Right.
Plus, you providing the story, you're going to tell the story because it's supposed to. So people get the story the way they want it. And get to the podcast, Monster Podcast, quick, because out of time we got to jump.
Okay.
Okay.
So
we've been doing these podcasts. This is a 30.
Yeah. So the Atlanta Monster podcast is very similar. It's very similar. Payne Lindsay did, similar things. He's, a walking, talking piece of doo-doo. He's a liar. He wouldn't have been able to do the podcast had it not been for me. He wouldn't have met Wayne Williams. And he's a tool that's been used to try to criminalize Wayne Williams all over again. So I'll just cut it short right there. But I just want people to know how much of a liar he is and how he lied about so many different things. And eventually, I still have the first interview that I did with him when he came to Texas. I'm going to eventually play that interview on a special episode of the podcast, and then I'm going to show how he and his business partner went in different interviews and almost said verbatim, punctuatum, what I said to them in the interviews.
Well, you know that's going to happen. Real quick, who is Payne Lindsay? For people don't know who Payne Lindsay in the state of Georgia, who is Payne Lindsay?
Really, to be honest with you, Payne Lindsay he's a clown, but he's the person who is responsible for a podcast called Up and Vanished about a lady named Tara Grimstead who was murdered in a small town. And then she was a school teacher and a former beauty pageant winner, and she disappeared and was murdered. So he did that, and then he ends up contacting me in 2000 and I want to say 16 time frame about the Atlanta Monster podcast, and I still have the original message that he sent me and everything else. So
okay, good. That's good. So with the constraints of time, because we only have a little bit of time left, like I said, the show, we got to do a part 2 to this show, because as all the information that Dwayne has, I mean, this is literally, I mean, these podcasts are literally 2.5 hours long, and he can tell you that. And that's just touching the surface of this. So I want to throw some names out to you and just be quick and brief and explain who they are and were they for Wayne or not for Wayne. Let's start off with Maynard Jackson.
Maynard Jackson was the mayor of the city of Atlanta at the time. He has been accused of being a person that was involved in pedophilia and child sex rings and things of that nature that was taking place in Atlanta. I can't say for sure that is the case, but there is a lot that points to that, and some of the people that are very, very close to the Atlanta child murders will definitely tell you much differently. He was a mayor that was basically a tool as well, and he was a part of the Boule elite, quote unquote, black leaders that have been appointed and put in place to continue to sell us out. He sold the soul of the city of Atlanta, and he sold Wayne Williams out for the benefit of getting federal funding to the city and the growth of the city. From a politician's standpoint, I guess some people will say he made great political decisions. But when you talk about something that has broken the hearts of so many people in the city, it's just very disgusting to think that somebody from our own community that looks like us would allow something like this to happen on their watch and then also protect the people that are doing it.
Okay, good. Larry Peterson. That's a good one for you.
Yeah, Larry Peterson, one of the liars that are connected to the FBI crime lab, in which the FBI crime lab has now been proven by the Department of Justice. It's been ruled that they lied or doctored information in their medical examination to help forensic examination of cases to be able to help sway the verdict towards a conviction. And in this particular instance, Wayne Williams's case was one of the ones that was included in something that came against what's called the Dalbert ruling, or the expert witness testimony, in which people who are supposedly expert witnesses come into cases and they give statements and testimonies about different cases. And truthfully, it's been proven that a lot of times these people who are expert witnesses just take the witness stand and lie to help be able to get people convicted. Okay. And this is what the Department of Justice said, not Dwayne Hendrick. Go ahead.
I know, not you said it. So we gotta be I got some more names. We can just be more brief. Jack Mallett.
Jack Mallett is one of the prosecuting attorneys who's a liar as well.
Let's go with Chet Dillinger.
Chet Detlinger was a police officer who moved from Louisville, Kentucky to Atlanta not long before the Atlanta child murders took place, and he became one of the driving forces to help get a lot of the investigative information out there. And he actually co-authored a book with a journalist from the LA Times named Jeff Prue, called The List, which is probably still the best book to give accurate accounts about what happened in the Atlanta child murders.
Okay, Willie Hunter.
Willie Hunter is somebody who has been accused of being a homosexual and involved with, some of the things that was taking place during the Atlanta child murders. I don't know those things to be true. I haven't found anything that would say that he was involved. What I will say is that I spoke with him briefly in 2012 on the phone, and still to this day, he's petrified of any talks about the Atlanta child murders, any talks about anything connected to it.
Okay. Dick Gregory and Hosea Williams.
Dick Gregory is, known for some of, the information that came out about the potential of these children being killed for a protein in their bodies called interferon that is actually now today being used in cancer treatment. This is one of the theories that became very popular surrounding the Atlanta child murders, and that the CDC is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and that potentially these little boys were being killed. Venus Taylor, one of the mothers that have been the most outspoken about the Atlanta child murders, the daughter of Angel Lanier, who was killed, she actually has told me that she saw hypodermic needle marks in the genital areas of these children. And multiple people have also corroborated the same story. But I also have to mention that Dick Gregory actually sold Venus Taylor out, and he helped hurt the case in some instances as well. So when I come back, maybe we could go into that a little bit more. Hosea Williams is supposedly a civil rights leader and someone who was supposed to be about, the upliftment of our people. But he, along with Joseph E. Lowry, another man named Tyrone Brooks, supposedly, and some more ministers from Atlanta, went to Wayne Williams' home and told him and his father that if he took a plea deal and said that he killed one of the adults, and I forget how many of the children, that he would do 10 years in prison, but the SCLC would give his family $1.5 million. Wow. And that he would have to take a man named Ed Garland as his attorney. Of course, Wayne Williams said no, and the rest is history. But Hosea Williams again is one of these people who, when you look at the public persona and everything else, people would think that he was somebody that was beneficial for us as a people, but I strongly disagree.
Right. You're one of your favorite people, Keisha Lance Bottoms.
The bottom feeder. Former mayor of the city of Atlanta, a puppet, a con artist, a lowlife, who reopened these murder investigations officially. In doing so, this stops the flow of information, so people can obtain the files and things of that nature to do the necessary investigation into what really happened. I just completely and totally despise her because she got on television and cried and said she was a kid in Atlanta when all of these things happened, and she made it seem as if she really wanted to do the right thing by the city and these families, but it was all one big facade, and she was perpetrating a fraud. And as a result, I think that's why she didn't rerun for mayor.
Right. So I'm going to leave you with one last thing. One of the things that I want to do, if time permits, I want to bring you back next week because I want to get personally and really what happened to you and what they tried to do to you recently. From the People's Magazine to
Right.
personally, you going to court recently. So I want to do a whole show next week
Right.
on that and
Right.
continue on who was behind, this and the gatekeeping. So the last name, Andrew Young.
Right. Andrew Young is another former mayor of the city of Atlanta, supposed civil rights leader, and from my vantage point, one big slime ball as well. Definitely a gatekeeper and definitely somebody who makes sure that they keep us in the blind about what's really going on.
Okay, so when we come back, I got a bunch of names left for you. We're gonna get into William Scarborough, who actually did reclamation.
Okay.
We got Joseph Burton is a name that comes up. So there's other. We're gonna talk about
Okay.
Brown, who went
Okay.
on to become the mayor of Houston. We're gonna definitely talk about him and other people.
Okay.
We're gonna definitely get into it personally next week. So talk a little bit right now. We got 2 minutes left. Talk a little bit right now, real quick. We've been doing the AT Kids.
At Kid Unleashed.
At Kid Unleashed, and we're up to 36 episode. 36 episode, and the 36th episode will be airing tonight.
Right.
You can actually check my page out, D's page. Talk a little real briefly about that and what we've been doing.
Okay, yeah. So we just get together at Wednesdays. We try to do it every Wednesday, but we get together and we talk about different aspects of the case. We go through investigative files. I talk about things that historically have never been talked about in the public perspective about the Atlanta child murders. I explain ins and outs about some of the stuff that has transpired, that has taken place to me and other people connected to the case, and what the whole purpose of everything that we're doing right now is preparing everyone for a documentary series that will be coming out, in which we will be giving definitive answers about a lot of the things that are swirling around the Atlanta child murders that people have never connected the dots on.
Okay, that's what's up, man. Once again, I want to thank my host. We're here 90.7 WTTC, also live on Facebook, StreamYard as well, YouTube. Want to thank my guest, Dwayne Hendricks. We're going to be back with part 2, and we're going to get more depth into the conversation. I know there was a few comments, so we'll definitely pick those comments up next week. We'll share them, and if you want to join in or watch the podcast tonight, 9:30, link up to my page, Dwayne's page, and we can go from there. All right, so on that note, 90.7 WTCC. Up next is Health Matters with Doris Harris, and I'll see you then.
Peace.